everybody. I am Anjanette, and welcome to Narrative Nights. And tonight I have a very special guest with me, Dana K, because she's going to pronounce her name for us. And she's from Kazakhstan originally, and she now lives in Alberta, Canada. So most of her work is inspired by her experiences with love, loss, and healing. So her book, the debut book, 5 a.m. After the silence. I don't think I said that right. Um, so she's going to tell us a little bit more about that. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that correctly, but it was inspired by the loss of her brother Arman. And she uses this as a tribute, and it really turns grief into a very poetic style of grief. And I'm really excited to have her here. She does champion for mental health and marginalized communities, so we'll learn more about that as well too. So please help me welcome Dana. Hi, Dana. I'm so sorry. I totally
No worries.
blew that.
No
So
problem.
the book is 5 a.m. The
Yep.
the
The silence after goodbye. Hi. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate that.
Oh, I'm so
I'm not
thrilled to
sure,
have you.
is this the audio recording or video? You can show
It's
my book
both.
or
It's both. They can see
both.
it.
Okay, good. So here's my book. It's called the 5 a.m. The Silence After Goodbye. Yes, it is the collection of poetry that I wrote during my grieving and healing process, as well as I included my brother's own poems and songs and a story written by him and some photographs. So it's very personal, just journey after losing my brother to suicide in 2019.
So, did your brother write also?
Yes, he did also. Yes, he was an oil and gas engineer, but he always loved music. And since he was in high school and then in his university years, he really admired some of the rap artists like Tupac and other artists. And he started writing his own songs. He wrote some poems as well. And yeah, and then so he was very creative in that way as well. So I whatever I could find, I included his poetry as well in this book. So it's a tribute and memory of him as well as having his voice live as well. So here's a picture of my brother in my book and Arman. Uh, and so I included not only I did write about our story, like about me missing and grieving him, his tragic loss. Actually, the poetry was the most, I guess, significant way for me to heal during my grieving and mourning of my brother. I don't believe we ever heal 100%, but it did give me some way out of that heaviest, I say, wilderness of the like grieving journey I had after losing him so in such a tragic way. So for the book, for the cover of the book, I used a photograph that was taken actually by my brother at the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan. This is Caspian Sea that was taken just on a phone camera, but it's such a beautiful picture, and I really loved it. And it kind of goes with my book. I do explain why is it 5 a.m. and I also dedicated the whole poem to 5 a.m. where I talk about the how I went to the funeral and how I heard the news and what happened. So it's 5 a.m. I live in Canada in Alberta. We have 12 hours difference with Kazakhstan. So 5 a.m. in Canada, it was 5 p.m. in Kazakhstan. That's when I received his last messages to me, and I was panicking. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, because it's everything seemed to be good because there's actually a whole story to that. So I do a little bit explain about that in my book, where for the whole year I tried to help him because he did admit that he has a depression and he could not bear it anymore and just was going through some turmoil. And I could not reach explain to my parents or my sister or his friends that this is actually a very serious condition of him. And he's been asking for help. He's been actually reaching out for help. But people, unfortunately, in our country still have this huge stigma to talk about depression, to talk about suicide, and so they take it as a being weak, especially for
Yeah.
men. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of not being like put together and stuff. But what when I was going through my grieving journey, I realized he's been actually coping with a lot of family dynamics and just other things that was like too much heavy on him for the last 10 years since I was in immigration. So I left Kazakhstan in 2009, and 2000, like 17, 18, I kind of knew he was going through a very hard time. And I was hoping we'll find a way to help him, but unfortunately, family was in denial, and friends, yeah, just also weren't very understanding. So that's what happened.
I think that's so sad, and I know I'm very aware of the stigmas in a lot of countries and cultures, and it's very big here in America too. People, I'm so proud of people that are coming forward and saying, that they suffered from depression because it gives other people permission to seek
Yes.
that help because it's so serious, and we're losing so many people to
Hmm.
suicide, and it's just
Yeah.
so unfortunate, that
Yeah.
we don't have to understand what other people are going through, but that doesn't mean we don't extend our hands and be there and try and be empathetic and compassionate and really help them get better,
Exactly. Mhm.
but it is very, very unfortunate. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
I
Thank
lost
you.
my
Thank you.
sister in a less tragic way, but it's um death of any kind is very, very tragic, and I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. It gets lighter, but it never leaves.
No. Yeah. And the thing is, like, especially when you realize that the person wasn't like he couldn't be quiet anymore. I know he couldn't share with many people, but to me, he was opening up because we had very special bond. I always say he was more as my firstborn son to me, it's not sibling. He was my younger brother, but I raised him. I like just family dynamics the way it was. I as the oldest child in the family, I had to take care and raise my siblings, and I was pretty much like his mother, honestly. And then when went to university, he lived with me. I even paid for his education. So I saw him in his blooming, like when he really loved music, he really loved creativity, and writing his songs and his poems. So here's like one of the first poems that I posted in my book. It's written by him. So I put like a um, wherever it says by Arman, it's his poetry. So, and also there are some songs that he wrote. So what I did with his songs, I actually he sings in Russian, so it's also written by him. So I did translate them into English, and then also I created a QR code so people can scan this QR code and hear his voice. He's singing. There's a link to YouTube.
This is such a beautiful tribute to your brother. It really is so beautiful in so many ways. Why don't you share some of his work with us?
His work.
Yeah, you can read it
Yeah,
to us.
sure. Yeah, sure. Let me read this little short poem that he wrote. It's called A Soul's Dream. Um, it's written by Arman in 2012. Mm. And this day will pass, just as the chill of nights has passed. The morning comes, the evening warms you up again, evaporating all your dreams. And somewhere out there in the mountains, in meadows of green fantasies, you'll feel freedom and soar with the lightness of your soul. Your wanderings in the vastness will bear fruit, and you will taste what it means to live in a carpet of steppe tulips with an open heart, simple love for your native land.
So beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. He was very deep and philosophical. He really was the center of the company. Like his friends loved him and adored him, same as with him. He loved his friends. That's why I don't blame anybody, but I do kind of express a little bit of just feeling sad that when I tried to reach them out, and then when he did actually had an attempt of suicide on that week, it was Thursday. His friends knew what happened, and then they helped to save him in some ways, because when we reached out to them, one of the friends were able to get hold of him, and he kept him on the phone for 2 hours and asked him to go to bed and kind of rest. And so he didn't do that that day. But then I was hoping that everybody will show up at his house, on Friday, just to show their support, their love, their presence. But unfortunately, I don't know. We probably don't know what to do. So people probably think they should leave them alone. Kind of maybe it will give them some time, but we don't know what happens in their because they already feel that they are being that by societal norms, I guess, being weak, right? Not being able to put it together, like hold themselves together. So I believe just that, as you said, like as I mentioned, showing a little bit of empathy, showing more a little bit of love, and just I just wish they just all showed up and told him how much they need him, how much they loved him. And
I think it's a lack of understanding, and I think that people should teach more cues, in nursing school, it's kind of drilled into our head, like we have to know, like if someone's giving away all their prized possessions, they know that they don't plan to be around after that, right? So we kind of have to understand some of the signs, but when someone overtly does something that indicates they need help and people don't reach out, that's even more heart-wrenching. And it might be their own fear of not knowing what to say or what to do, and so they do nothing, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah, especially because they know him as being very bubbly, very, very fun to be around, right? And suddenly when the person shuts down, when they're like withdrawn, or they feel because they feel so much shame, like we unfortunately grew up in a very unhealthy family, with very, very toxic, I guess. And then so there's lots of guilt, blaming, and shame, I guess. Sorry, guilt and blame that we grew up with, and also societally, I guess, because we come from the post Soviet Union countries, when I always say like it's a shame-based culture we have. Like there's lots of like, what will your neighbor say? What will other people will say, your family and stuff. So it's just a lot of weight on people, and yeah, to me, like the feeling guilty, even like to me was the biggest, the most strongest emotion and feeling that I had to uh, work on, when I was going through this. Because that, I always say, guilt almost killed me. Because I felt such a huge amount of guilt of knowing that he was that stage, and I did my best at that time. But after, of course, math, I'm thinking like, oh, I should have done this. I could have done much better job for this. Because how come I was still like to the last minute believing that his friends will start, understanding better, Especially after that attempt, I was thinking, oh, they will now know what that he really needs help, and he's been not asking for help, but it's obvious, right, that he needed help, and especially because I was trying to reach to them too. I don't know all of his friends, but whoever I could find contacts with, and then my parents, for example, too, right? I was thinking, okay, now they will realize they're almost losing their son, right? Their only son. No, I just, unfortunately, I'm not, again, like, I don't want to be shifting any blames, but it's just unfortunate that I was so far away from him. And that was another, also, me thinking, like, maybe, why didn't I go? Why didn't I go even for 1 month or 2 months?
You can't hold on to that guilt and that blame. You really can't. He would not have wanted you to live like that, especially because of the love that you two shared, you know. Everything happens in life for a reason, even if we don't understand the reason at that time, you know. I'm gonna tell you a beautiful story that my mother told me when I was little, and this is a story show, so it's okay.
Yeah,
Um, and this kind of helped me when my mother passed. It was told to me after my sister passed. I wish I would have heard it before. So my mother said that we all in heaven prior to coming to Earth, and that we all know exactly what we're coming down here for, that we pick the bodies and the families that we go into, and that we know what the outcome of that life is going to be. But on the way down, as we descend from heaven to earth, we lose that recollection. And we're here trying to find that path from the time we arrive. And that when I wasn't okay with death, and in my field, I'm in health, I see a lot of death, and I've lost a lot of family. And my
Mhm.
mother said to me that death is a completion, that when we have completed the task, that every single life interacts another life, and
Mhm.
that one life might just be to be in one place at a time, so something bad or something good happens to somebody else, and that might be our only task while we're here. And death is a completion, that we've completed all our tasks and we go back home to Father.
Mm.
So it helped me, feel good about the passing. It didn't take it away, but it helped me realize that they had accomplished what they were here to do, and that they were in a place of peace and far greater
Mm.
than here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I had something. I heard something similar, but I also what I heard a little bit different from your story, that we sometimes come with some, what you said, as you mentioned, tasks, right? But sometimes we cannot accomplish those tasks because maybe we took too much. That's how I felt about my brother. Maybe he had taken so much tasks with that heavy load that he could not. At one point, I guess he lost his maybe track or how to handle it, because with the family dynamics that we had, he should have withdrawn himself. I think subconsciously I kind of ran away, so I ended up being in Canada, and that kind of somehow kind of saved me a little, kind of in some ways, although they would still get me through like social media, like not social media, but there's some of the apps that you can stay connected with the family, like Skype before, now WhatsApp and other apps like that. So I felt sad that he could not, but then I felt hope and peace, because it made me kind of wake up. But what happened to him kind of made me to wake up and reevaluate my life, because I felt at one point stuck too, like I wasn't going through this vicious cycles of you know different things in life, and I wasn't sure why the way out. For him, at one point, yes, I did feel kind of a little bit of relief, which I also expressed in my book, that I kind of felt a little bit of relief because I realized he could not bear anymore. He needed to go. And the father, because he told me on Friday, he texted me saying he prayed to God and asked him to help him in his struggles. And when on Sunday he took his life, there was just a momentum when I felt a relief, that God gave him permission. That's how I felt. God gave him permission to come to his and leave this world. But at the same time, I was grieving a lot. Just his life. He's so young. He was only 34. He never got married. He never had children. And I felt just all the years in life we cannot have anymore together. That life he cannot enjoy anymore. But then, as I mentioned, I felt like I woke up, like I just veils came off of my eyes, and I suddenly realized that what am I doing with my life? So he kind of, in some ways, helped me to understand where am I at, and that started all this whole cycle of me rediscovering myself, um, like learning again how to love myself, how to get step down, and I mean stay away from some of the people, like including family.
toxic, yeah, toxic people.
Yeah, yeah. I had to cut off some people, like friendships I had like for over 10 years and stuff. I realized they weren't very good for me, so I cut them off first, and then some of the family members, and then and then my marriage, right? So I actually got separated and divorced 2.5 years ago. So that's another thing that happened too. It's not because of that. It's just all these things that I was holding on to and just having my miserable life because of the like all the beliefs that I wasn't even they weren't even mine, I guess. You know what I mean? Just
They're not. So a lot of you're talking about so many things here that I think that we should shine a light on while we're here because so much of what we believe are those generational stories. You were taught to believe that there was shame and guilt around, what will the people think? You know, the terminology may be different, but these are things that have been taught for generations to all
yes.
kids, not just in your family.
Okay.
So in our family, it was what happens in this house stays in this house, like something horrible
Yes.
was happening in our home. So and there was shame and guilt about sharing what we did in our family with other people. And um it made me feel growing up like I couldn't tell people things that were important to me, or I couldn't share
Mm,
openly and honestly about how this affected me and the way that I felt. And I did suffer with
yeah.
horrible, horrible depression growing up. And that wasn't talked about back then either, you know? Um,
Mhm.
and luckily, I did get through it, but it's not like I never had the thoughts your brother did. Well, wouldn't it be better if I just didn't wake up? Um, and I think a lot of people have those thoughts at different times of their lives, and we have to be able to teach better stories
Mhm.
to our children because we're raising a very deficient generation that
Yes.
is afraid to express themselves and to feel their emotions and to talk about real feelings. And we're putting a band-aid on a very bad situation. So it's great that more people are coming forward
Mm,
and talking about depression and what they went through. But is it changing the stigmas? I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know how we get past them because they're not just ingrained in us and in our families, they're ingrained in generations of families.
Mm,
And we keep carrying them forward. Post COVID, I do a lot of community work, and post COVID, I'm seeing a lot more children that are suffering with anxiety and depression
mhm.
than ever before. Was it always there? Probably, but it just wasn't so apparent. And because they were isolated and they weren't around people that their peers that they could confide in, right? And they were home maybe in bad situations, it just amplified what was already there.
Yeah, I'm also grateful that so many people now coming out and saying how we are allowed, we have permission to process our emotions, to process our feelings. And that's exactly like I don't know that I'm not being 100% good, perfect mom, but I'm trying to teach my daughters. I have two daughters that they're allowed to feel their emotions, and that's what hopefully with me by healing through this, because healing doesn't matter how painful it is. It is very painful, but it does gradually come. I'm not saying that time healed and does not heal, but I've been just discovering so much about myself and about my healing and my just just my yeah. And I'm hoping that's a good example for my daughters to understand that things will happen and that this sadness does mm, come to our lives, like including the COVID, right? It was very, very challenging time for my daughters because it was the same time when I was grieving, and then they could not see their friends as well. They're grieving as well. It's not only my grief, right? They lost their uncle, so it was their grief as well. But it just was so much heavier because when I wasn't available for them, and I wasn't, I wish they had friends they could talk to, and process this and with them. But unfortunately, and then they were that age when they didn't have cell phones and stuff, right? So it was another thing. So with yeah, unfortunately, like grieving, even like what I'm even like today, like we struggle like about how we can be present for each other during the grieving and healing process, and not expecting that somebody should be over that after some time, and
I
but not an,
In health, they consider that after a year, it's dysfunctional, and I'm not okay with that. I don't think that's true
Oh,
because I know that I wasn't over it. I think 2 years into it, I was still dialing my sister's number, expecting her to pick
mm,
up. So
mhm,
I think you should give time, and acknowledging it and accepting it is another story. Coming to terms with it, maybe, but there's
mm,
always going to be that loss. Every holiday, um,
mm,
there's not a Christmas or a birthday or
mhm.
even Easter that goes by and I don't miss my sister.
Yeah,
Every time something big happens in my life, I can't wait to tell D, right?
yeah,
And D's not there anymore. So I understand that, but being present with your family now, your now family, that's what's important. Let's honor your brother. Let's hear another one of his poems before we conclude tonight, and maybe
sure.
one of yours.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, to me, like it was, like let me read. Yeah. So it was I was a lot of things that I've written more like about like big sister's motherly love, for example, or just being him being a good son, right? Like how it shouldn't be. Like it was more like whatever came for me. Like it was also me like wrestling with God, right? Like how where was God? Where were you, God, when I was praying for him to be healed, right, for the whole year and stuff. So and then how I wanted to still have some connection with him. So I'm actually thankful to some visions and dreams that I had about him, about my brother, and some signs. So I've read a couple of books by Laura Lynn Jackson who talks about signs, how we can be still connected and stay in connection with our loved ones who passed away. So yeah, it's just let me read. So every year, as you say, like I do, yes, especially write. I try to write something to express my feelings, emotions on his birthday and around Christmas time, yes, but also on the day of his passing. I still, yeah, it's very still very hard to accept that what happened. Yeah, and then I do talk about in my book about different creative ways of healing. Like this one, like I talk about how I created and got done a tattoo to tribute to my brother, where I included his handwriting of our nicknames and just representing his dynamic, creative personality and stuff. So it's a little tribute to him. Um, so you want me to read one of his poems you said now?
Yeah, we have time for one more. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
It could be one of yours too. You could read one of yours.
Yeah. So um so here it's called by my brother, it's called Did Our so moment. I also included some of his pictures in my some of his photographs in the book, just to give some idea of, and also some of the texts he wrote to me, just to give some idea, some story about us. Um, yeah, shall I read about one of my dreams that I had?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's called In the Dream's Wake. I dreamed I was in my parents' house, searching for albums with your pictures. I turned the old pages, looking for your face. In a huge wall-length wardrobe, I opened every door. On the shelves, I peered into the frames, sorting through armfuls of papers. I felt their judgment, disapproving glances cast my way. Not everyone understood what I needed. Why did I come to my father's house? But then there it was, a discovery, stroke of luck. I held a recording of your dance on the school stage. You were with friends, their faces barely recognizable in a lively performance. You stood on the right, break dancing with a group. the blurred tape in grayscale, but for me, it's a treasure. I reveled in the moment, watching you again and again, so carefree on the school stage, so joyful and alive. I woke up feeling sadness, but also gratitude in my heart. You had let me return to you to relive those childhood moments. You were always the funny one, your sense of humor in place, the soul of the group, a faithful friend. This is how they remember you. This is how I remember you.
So beautiful. I think what you're doing is so beautiful. I'm so glad you came in and shared this. We talked about a lot of things, and hopefully we did
Yeah,
a little bit of belief shifting for some people out there, and um, because something has to change, right?
yeah,
Something has to change. We can't keep losing children, right?
no, yeah, that's right. Yes, it's just I believe like when there is a glimpse of people like just reaching out, we we could find little time, to reach back, and just be present, for them. Maybe we don't have to say much. We don't need to teach them or do anything, but just be present for them. Yeah.
So
So I don't know
I
if you
want to
were,
thank.
yeah, I don't know if you still had time to for me to read one more for him, but it's okay.
We do have to end. I'm sorry. You
Oh,
can
no
always
worries.
come, but no, but you can always come back and
No, no, it's
any
okay.
other time and share some more. I'd love to have you again. And you're just a delightful young lady. Where can they get this book?
Oh, yeah, this book is available only on Amazon right now. So if of your country, just if you search that by the name, it's called 5 a.m. The Silence After Goodbye, or by my name, Dana Kurmasheva. I think you're giving them my website, right? It's
Yes,
the website will have links to the Amazon as well.
you have to send that to me because I didn't get that in the stuff that you sent to me. So
Okay,
say, yeah. So
I
after
will
the
do that.
show, yeah, after the show, and all of her stuff will be underneath. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning into this heartfelt episode with Dana and myself. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you.